So we've had the autumn budget statement, the masses of tax rises to try to dampen down rampant inflation. We're already in recession. It's going to be the longest recession on record. What's all this going to mean for property investors, and how do you need to up your game right now? So official inflation has hit 11.1%, which is a 40-year high. Of course, that is the published inflation rate. We all know that the real inflation rate is a lot higher than that. Now, a little bit of inflation, say 3% or 4%, is not too bad for property investors and property owners. But rampant inflation like we have now is no good news for anybody. The top priority here in this budget is to bring that inflation figure down. Now, the government has massive borrowings, £100 billion worth, and it costs around 10% of total tax revenues just to service that debt. Now, the whole confidence in government debt has been massively affected by the Kwasi-Kwarteng budget fiasco of a few months ago. And basically what happened there was that the lenders who lend to the UK basically lost confidence. UK government debt is a bit like a credit card. You need to have a credible plan for how you're going to pay the minimum monthly instalment every month, and also some sort of plan how you're going to chip into the total debt that's owed each month. Provided you've got that, it's okay if you extend your credit card limit from time to time, but as long as your lenders have confidence that you're managing your credit card facility okay, then you're okay with it. Now, Kwasi-Kwarteng and all of that, they lost all that credibility for UK debt. And this budget's main priority is to do something about that inflation and bring down the costs of borrowing for the government and for all of us. But this can only be done by bringing about a recession. But more on the recession later. Let's have a look at what was actually announced in the budget and how it'll affect you as property investors. There have been some massive rises in personal taxation. The 45% taxation band has come down from £150,000 to £125,000. That means if you earn over £125,000, you'll be paying tax at the rate of 45%. On that extra amount. Now, that is very, very high. Already the UK has one of the lowest thresholds for paying high rate tax of any of the major world countries. For example, in the USA, their top rate of tax for personal earners is 37%, and that kicks in if you earn more than $539,000 per year. So having such high rates of taxation set at such low thresholds in the UK compared to other countries is going to have a massive effect on middle class earners, entrepreneurs, and generally aspiration. The 40% threshold band is staying the same at about 50k a year, but of course with inflation that we have had, the value of that threshold band has been basically dropped. Now, this is an interesting one. Councils are going to be allowed to raise council taxes by 5%. So if you have houses in multiple occupation and you're paying the council tax for your HMOs, expect rises there. Councils are all strapped, and I expect them to implement that full 5% rise to the max. So if you receive dividend income from your company, the allowance that you can receive tax-free has been cut from £2,000 to £1,000, halved. Capital gains tax allowances. Previously, you could benefit from £12,300 capital gain per year as an individual. That's been halved to 6k. The stamp duty and land tax changes that Liz Truss introduced, they are going to stay on the books until 2025, so those increases in SDLT bands will still apply. On business rates, there's been no wholesale reform suggested or mooted, as is what many people believe is necessary, but just a revaluation exercise, which to me seems a little bit daft. And the corporation tax rises in April are going to go ahead, so it's going to go up from 19% to 25% from April next year. Now, basically, you can't do anything about the problems that we have without raising taxes and reducing government expenditure. We're already in recession, and the Bank of England, you can see on this graph, has forecast that we are now in the longest recession that we've ever had in the UK. What that means for property investors is that you need to recalibrate your mindset for the recession time that we are now in. As Warren Buffett famously says, it's only when the tide goes out that you discover who's been swimming naked. What does that mean? When the market's booming, when everything is booming, actually, it's quite easy to do well in a number of fields. But when the market turns, when the market moves from boom to recession, you quickly discover who had a proper, sustainable business and who just simply got lucky. In the property context, those people who have got lucky are those who have basically over-leveraged, over-borrowed on artificially low interest rates, and they've made gains from rising house prices, which have been just rising naturally in a boom, rather than adding real fundamental value to the properties that they have picked up. Now, these people have built businesses which were never sustainable over the long term. These are the people who I describe as the ones who got lucky. These are the people who Warren Buffett describes as basically swimming in the nude and highly exposed as the tide goes out. Now, this recession will see many casualties in business and in property. You'll see many of these people started off within the last 10 years in a boom cycle and never really built a sustainable business that can weather all phases of the property market cycle. And you'll see a lot of people who have popped up on YouTube and social media as business and property entrepreneurs in the last few years quickly pop off again as their businesses get more and more exposed. In these times more than ever, the entrepreneurs to follow and to take guidance from are the ones who have been in the business for several decades, because they're the ones who have built sustainable businesses which are able to survive and thrive in recession and in boom. So make sure you follow this channel, subscribe, hit the bell icon. We'll put out a lot of videos each and every week to help you keep on top of property investing during these challenging times, and also seek out the opportunities that exist for savvy property entrepreneurs. Now, here's my message to you guys. Recessions are actually good news if you know what you're doing. I mean, first of all, you've got to have a property business that's built on solid foundation principles, that hasn't been just built around getting lucky from the unique circumstances of the last few years. And that takes intent, that takes a solid plan. Because any real estate entrepreneur will tell you, who's been in the business for a few decades, that fortunes are made in recessions. This is exactly the time to be getting into it rather than getting out of it. You'll see in the media stories about landlords selling up. I see these stories almost weekly. But when you actually look at the detail, you usually find that the landlords that are selling up fall into two camps. They're often retiring landlords because often when you've been in it several decades and all of that, you reach a certain age, you want to slow down a little bit, and then recession is normally a decent time to just cash in your chips. The other type of people that are selling up their properties are what I call accidental landlords. These are people who had their own home, they moved out of it but chose to rent it out. They never chose to set up a property business. Now, you guys watching this want to be in the property business. And remember, in any type of business, there's nothing accidental about it. It needs intent. Now, one thing this budget has demonstrated yet again is all this tinkering with the income tax bands and thresholds and allowances and all of that means that if your only source of income is through PAYE, then you are basically controlled and manipulated by these statements that seem to be every quarter these days. As I've said before, and I've said time and time again, recessions are the ideal time to put your property investing game on steroids, provided you have the right plan and you execute it properly. Over the next 3 years and during this recession, you're going to have massive potential to acquire income-producing assets. Now, if you want to know more about what I'm talking about, I suggest you get down to the Baker Street Property Meet. On Wednesday, 30th of November is the Baker Street Property Meet, and we're focusing exactly on this. The theme of this event is cash. Cash flow is king. So we're going to be focusing on generating cash at this month's Baker Street Property Meet, Wednesday, 30th of November, the UK's largest property investors networking meeting, where you can meet and network with 300 plus property investors. Now more than ever, you're going to need to recalibrate your mindset and rejig your property game to the unique circumstances of building wealth and income producing assets through a recession. There's no better place to come to, then the Baker Street Property Meet Wednesday 30th of November. Join me and my co-host Andrew Roberts and 300 property investors, and we'll take you through our plan for surviving and thriving the next few years. So tell me what you think about this autumn statement and the opportunities presented by recession in the comments below. Make sure you like the video and also subscribe, hit the bell icon so you keep in touch with the future videos we put out. See you guys at Baker Street. Bye for now. High streets across the land are changing forever. Basically, there's an oversupply of retail premises. Shops are closing down, more are going to close down in the future. The government know this, and that's why they're introducing a light touch planning system which allows small developers to easily repurpose these buildings to residential use under a light touch planning regime called permitted development. Now, this is going to be the biggest revolution and the biggest change and the biggest opportunity for property investors that I've ever seen. And this is all coming into effect on 1st of August. So you need to know what's happening and what properties to look for to take advantage of these opportunities so that you can get in there and take that first mover advantage. I've got a 90-minute free masterclass to get you ready for August the 1st. Make sure you join me, click the link below. Whether you're a beginner or expert, we'll get you started.